Welcome to 60 Skills. The topic of today's lecture is Beyond the Planetary Meditations. All right, in Western esotericism and meditation in general, there's a tendency to group the various spirit entities that are worked with based off of the planets. Moon, Mercury, Venus, so on and so on. Classically speaking, there were only 7 planets going out to Saturn because those were the planets that you could see with the naked eye. Over the intervening couple hundred years, we've also discovered Neptune, Uranus, and depending upon who you ask, Pluto, although Pluto is sometimes considered a planet and sometimes not. So it's possible to add those 3 planets in as well. And the progression from that largely charts in order with the inner planets, so there's not really a whole lot that needs to be said there, although a lot could be said about what the individual planets do. Question is, all right, you work out to Saturn or Jupiter or all the way to Pluto. What happens next? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is to reground yourself back using the sun sphere. Now, there are a variety of reasons for this, one of which is that most people tend to pick up a little bit of, for lack of a better word, grunge energetically on the way out to Pluto. Bringing this back to the sun sphere allows you to burn a lot of that off, and more importantly, reintegrate those experiences into something a bit more terrestrial. Part of the problem with dealing with the outer planets, which in this case is really anything past the sun sphere, is that the experiences there are generally not universal. They have a lot to do with who you are and the training you've had in life and what you do with your life. So reintegrating that becomes very important because, to be honest with you, these inner planets is where we spend most of our time. So, okay. You go out, you work through all the different meditations over a period of months or years. You come back. Now we need to reground. What's the mechanic behind doing that? Well, it's basically the sun and moon meditation. So you'll do your solar meditation, and then you'll follow up with your lunar meditation. And this is where most people stop. At this point, in terms of what you're going to do as a human being on this level of existence, you've done it. That's it. You're good. But you don't have to stop. Okay. Well, where do you go once you're done with this solar system in terms of meditating on the different spheres that influence it? Well, classically speaking, you're now talking about the Zodiac. Well, why the Zodiac? Okay. There are hundreds of constellations out there. More now that we have powerful telescopes than anybody can get their hands on. That said, the energies associated with a lot of these other constellations are not really healthy to work with for human beings. The signs of the Zodiac, on the other hand, Taurus, Cancer, Scorpio, Virgo, etc., classically speaking, are accepted as things that, when worked together as a whole unit, are generally beneficial for human beings. Sometimes this is loosely referred to as the trials of Heracles in some meditative circles. Now, this is conducted using the same ball above head 3-part meditation system that 60 Skills uses for everything. There are other ways to do this involving more classical forms of invocation or, for that matter, evocation. That said, you need to reground into this solar system because the power of the sun as a star provides you access to the constellations, which are groups of other stars. Now, this trial of Heracles is very rarely written about as a meditative phenomenon. There's lots of information out there involving this in terms of its astrological function, and a fair amount of information out there involving the use of these in talismanic magic, and even a decent amount of information on medical applications involving the energy of the constellations. This is usually via some kind of herbal medicine preparation, spagyric or something like this. So this is kind of the stepping off point for what happens next. But keep in mind, you don't have to do these constellation meditations. It's merely the next logical step forward. Now, earlier I talked about how not all constellations are safe to work with. For example, did a series of meditations on the Butterfly Nebula. It was interesting. The Butterfly Nebula burns quite a bit hotter in terms of energetic potential than anything else I've ever dealt with. And by itself, it was certainly not healthy to work with as a standalone. What it did do well is provide an excellent counterbalance to cooler planetary spheres like, say, Venus. Now, it took a bit of trial and error, but basically what I figured out along with my meditative group who was working on it at the time is that you only needed 1/3 as much time with the Butterfly Nebula to counterbalance against Venus as you would have energy from the sun. But the few experiments that the group tried to do by using the Butterfly Nebula by itself didn't end well. It burned way too hot, the information that came through was really disjointed, and the entities involved were a little weird. So just keep in mind that not all constellations are considered safe to work with. Also, because not a whole lot is written about these things, some of the functions of these things can be, well, up to your own interpretation. Basically, you're going to be doing a lot of legwork. And because of this, I strongly advise doing it in groups, so at least you have someone else to bounce your experience off of. Otherwise, these constellations, because they're so far removed from normal human potential, both by distance and in terms of their energetics, it can be really confusing and hard to figure out exactly what they do. So, I hope you enjoyed today's lecture. If you liked this, please hit the like button and the subscribe button. And if you would like to learn more about the 60 Skills curriculum, please check out the details in the video down below. Otherwise, train hard and be well.